A Miami, Florida woman is facing criminal charges after her boyfriend's son left a handwritten sticky note stating, "Please help us." While it's unclear where the note was found, it caught someone's attention in early March of 2025 and led the authorities to investigate. Workers with the Florida Department of Children and Families interviewed the young boy who accused his father's girlfriend, 25-year-old Katrina Carrillo, of pinning him to the floor and beating him. He also claimed that Carrillo had held a blanket and pillow over his head, obstructing his ability to breathe. Several weeks into the investigation, Carrillo underwent questioning at the Miami Police Headquarters. She denied the allegations but was placed under arrest for felony child abuse and booked into the Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Center. Carrillo was released later that day after posting a $5,000 bond and is banned from going near her boyfriend's children amid the ongoing case. Number 21. Vivian Brantley. 47-year-old father of 5, Damian Dawson, was fatally shot during a domestic violence incident in Birmingham, Alabama in January of 2025. Officers arrived at the scene to find him unresponsive in the driveway with a gunshot wound. He was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital, and the search began for the suspect, who fled the scene in a vehicle before emergency responders arrived. Dawson's ex-girlfriend, 24-year-old Vivian Simone Brantley, turned herself in to law enforcement several hours later and is now facing a murder charge in connection with the victim's death. The victim's family members said that Dawson had recently started dating a new woman and that Brantley couldn't handle the thought of him moving on from their relationship. Brantley was booked into the Jefferson County Jail, where she remains held without bond amid the ongoing case. Number 20. Collins Agyei. 29-year-old Esther Arco miraculously survived after being shot 6 times by her ex-boyfriend and the father of her children in Fairfax County, Virginia, in February of 2023. The shooting occurred at Arco's apartment building in Alexandria, where the suspect, Collins Agyei, waited for Arco to come outside to get her son off the school bus. Agyei confronted Arco, who captured cell phone footage of the confrontation and attempted to run to safety while screaming for help. Just days earlier, she had obtained a restraining order against Agyei, who's accused of shooting Arco because he refused to accept that their relationship was over. The two had broken up 5 years earlier after dating for 2 years, but instead of moving on, Agyei decided that if he couldn't have the victim, no one could. Agyei was originally charged with crimes that could have put him away for life, but a judge dismissed the most serious count. A jury found the defendant guilty of malicious wounding and use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, and he was sentenced to 23 years to life. Speaking to NBC Washington in May of 2025, Arco said that she continues to suffer from painful injuries. She requires a tracheostomy tube in order to breathe and talk, and she believes that Agyei should have been sentenced to life in prison for his crimes. Number 19. James Quininchetta. On a Friday morning in early June of 2025, 33-year-old Rebecca Roth was found shot to death inside a car in Suffolk County, Long Island. Police traced the crime to Roth's ex-boyfriend, 40-year-old James Quininchetta, who was accused of killing the victim after going to her apartment in the middle of the night in an attempt to collect money she owed him. According to police, Quininchetta shot at Roth 7 times when she refused to pay him back. He then fled the scene, tossing the murder weapon and ammunition as he returned to his residence. The gun was found in a parking lot near Roth's apartment building, and Quininchetta turned himself into law enforcement at midnight the following day. He's facing a murder charge which could potentially put him away for 40 years to life, and is currently awaiting his next scheduled court hearing from behind bars at the Suffolk County Jail. Number 18. Ewan Methven. In November of 2024, 21-year-old Phoenix Spencer Horn was found brutally murdered at her flat in South Lanarkshire, England. She had been choked and stabbed to death, beheaded and mutilated in an apparent attempt to dismember her remains. Police made the discovery after receiving a call from Spencer Horn's boyfriend of 2 years, 27-year-old Ewan Methven, who had confessed to killing the victim during a drug-induced psychotic break. He also admitted that he had tried to dismember Spencer Horn, and responding officers found the victim's severed head sitting upright next to her body in a hallway. The couple had recently moved into the flat in East Kilbride where Spencer Horn was eating dinner when she sent her last text message to her mother 2 days before her body was found. When Spencer Horn's mother was unable to reach her the next day, Methven reached out and said that she was still sleeping. He later sent a text message pretending to be the victim and saying that everything was fine. After calling law enforcement and admitting to the crime, Methven claimed he had blacked out after using steroids and cocaine, and that he believed The drugs were spiked. Further investigation revealed that Methven had spent hours on adult websites after killing Spencer Horn, which police found to be odd behavior for someone who claimed to be upset over having just murdered someone. In June of 2025, Methven pleaded guilty to murder and attempting to defeat the ends of justice. He's currently awaiting sentencing, which is scheduled for July 14th. Number 17. James Oliver. In a tragedy that shook an entire community, 36-year-old mother of 3, Tiffany Bonner, was found shot in the head inside her burning car behind a Munford, Alabama home in March of 2025. She had been missing all day and had failed to show up at her job, and witnesses told police that the woman had been shot during an altercation. After discovering Bonner's body, police searched for a person of interest who had been seen walking along a nearby road with a firearm. When Talladega County deputies approached the man, he pulled the gun, prompting the officers to open fire, later identified as Bonner's ex-boyfriend, James Cole Oliver. He was charged with capital murder in June of 2025. Just 24 hours before the murder, a judge had granted Bonner an order of protection against Oliver. The former couple had a lengthy history of domestic violence incidents, and Oliver had allegedly refused to leave Bonner alone after their breakup. He has also been uncooperative with the investigation into Bonner's death and is currently awaiting his first court appearance, which is scheduled for August 18th. Number 16. Brandon Mitchell. While responding to a call at a Jackson, New Hampshire apartment complex on a Wednesday evening in November of 2022, investigators found 23-year-old Esme Doucette suffering from a gunshot wound to the head. She was rushed to the hospital where she died 2 days later from serious injuries. 2 days after the shooting, police arrested 21-year-old Brandon Mitchell on suspicion of assault and domestic violence. In early 2023, he was indicted on charges of second-degree murder and falsifying evidence. Police identified Mitchell as a suspect in the case using evidence from a cell phone that had been retrieved from Doucette's apartment and was found in his possession after the murder. The defense argued that there was no way to prove that Mitchell owned the cell phone, which had sent argumentative text messages to Doucette prior to her death, but Mitchell eventually abandoned his attempts to prove his innocence and pleaded guilty to reckless second-degree murder in June of 2025. Prosecutors plan to ask for a prison sentence of 35 years to life during the defendant's upcoming sentencing hearing in August. Number 15. Atoya Holmes. In November of 2021, a South Florida corrections officer named Atoya Holmes was accused of killing her boyfriend, 52-year-old Verdell Goins, in her vehicle in Miami Gardens after leaving a Dolphins football game. The victim had been shot twice in the chest, and Holmes was arrested on suspicion of murder. During the trial in the fall of 2023, prosecutors accused her of being possessed and obsessed with Goins, who had started dating another woman. The state argued that Holmes was driven by jealousy, rage, and a depraved mind, and that she had no legitimate reason to open fire on the victim. Taking the stand in her own defense, Holmes claimed that she shot Goins in self-defense while he was beating her up. She claimed that Goins had a history of physically abusing her, and the jury found her guilty of a lesser manslaughter charge. But the judge made it clear that he didn't believe the defendant's testimony and sentenced her to 13 years in prison. Holmes appealed her case, and in June of 2025, she was granted a new trial after a court determined that a harmful error had occurred during the first trial. More specifically, the court concluded that prosecutors had given jurors too much information about a 2017 shooting where Holmes had shot her son several times. Authorities had deemed the incident a justified case of self-defense. In light of the recent ruling, Holmes will soon be transferred from state prison to the Osceola County Jail to await her new trial. Number 14. Emanuel Bedford. 41-year-old Deirdre Reed was last seen leaving her Pageland, South Carolina home to drive the father of her children, Emanuel Bedford, to a Greyhound bus station. She was never seen or heard from again, prompting her 3 children and other family members to look up car accidents to see if she had been in a crash. When 24 hours passed with no sign of Reed, her loved ones reported her missing. Police believed that Reed and Bedford had made it to the Greyhound station, and they did not initially consider Bedford to be a person of interest in the case. Several weeks later, authorities announced that Bedford was in fact a person of interest. Reed's family claimed that Bedford never got on the Greyhound bus he had purchased a ticket for, but law enforcement was hesitant to discuss the details of the investigation. Investigators eventually found Reed's vehicle submerged in water just 11 miles from Bedford's home in Brook County, Georgia. Blood found inside the vehicle turned up as a match to Reed, whose body was never found, and Bedford was charged with numerous crimes in connection with the case, including murder and kidnapping. He pleaded not guilty but was convicted of murder and grand larceny following a jury trial in June of 2025, resulting in a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Number 13. Chad Weathers. On a Sunday morning in June of 2025, police responded to the Skiatook, Oklahoma residence of 49-year-old Chad Weathers, who had placed a 911 hang-up call. Officers arrived at around 9:30 a.m. and were greeted by Weathers, who offered an ominous warning. "I've got a weird one for you." He then confessed to fatally shooting his girlfriend the night before. Police found the deceased victim, Tanya Anderson, inside the home with a gun laying nearby. The victim's family told police that there was a history of domestic violence between the couple, but no incidents were ever reported to law enforcement. Weathers was arrested on suspicion of first-degree murder and is being held without bond at the Osage County Jail. His alleged motive remains unclear, but Skiatook Police Chief Jason Willingham told local station WOTV that the investigation is ongoing and vowed to find answers for Anderson's family. Number 12. Julie Bush. After finding another woman's feminine hygiene product in the garbage at her boyfriend's Las Vegas home in May of 2024, 31-year-old Julie Bush confronted 51-year-old Richard Rick Panado Jr. about the discovery. During the heated argument that ensued, Panado retrieved a chain from inside and began swinging it, smashing Bush's vehicle windows. Bush stepped on the gas and rammed her car into Panado, sending him flying through the air and into a brick wall. Panado died from his injuries and Bush was charged with voluntary manslaughter and driving under the influence. Prosecutors said that the feminine hygiene product most likely belonged to Panado's roommate, while noting that the entire incident had been captured on doorbell camera footage. Bush pleaded guilty in March of 2025 and was sentenced to 12 to 35 years in prison, with the possibility of parole starting in 2036. Bush apologized for Panado's death during her sentencing hearing, telling the judge that she loves the victim very much and wishes she could change what happened. Her seemingly remorseful words had little to no impact on Panado's mother, Grace Fisher, who said in a victim impact statement that her son had made many mistakes and that his involvement with Bush was the biggest of them all. Number 11. Sergio Hyland. While responding to a call in North Philadelphia during the early morning hours of July 11th, 2024, police found 30-year-old Jasmine Ransom unresponsive in the street from a gunshot wound to the head. She was pronounced dead at the scene and the investigation continued for months before detectives connected the homicide to Ransom's boyfriend, 43-year-old Sergio Hyland, who was arrested in April of 2025 on suspicion of murder and gun charges. Hyland had previously served more than 20 years in prison for murder after pleading guilty to the charge in 2004. He became extremely active as a criminal justice organizer with Pennsylvania's Working Families Party following his release in 2022, but he also found time to date, and when he received a text message from another man who claimed to have recently slept with Ransom, Hyland flew into a fit of rage and shot Ransom in the back of the head. Investigators identified Hyland as a suspect in the murder using surveillance footage, cell phone records, and other evidence. In recorded phone calls with inmates serving time in state prison, Hyland had mentioned possibly getting locked back up and hiring a defense attorney. According to the most recent available updates, the case has been bound over for trial and Hyland remains held without bond. Number 10. Meagan Jackson. An extramarital affair between a Myrtle Beach, South Carolina woman and a county coroner took a deadly turn in October of 2020 when Meagan Jackson fatally shot the father of her children, Greg Rice. Her secret lover, Horry County Deputy Coroner Christopher Dontel, admitted to dumping Rice's body, which was found by fishermen in the Little PD River roughly 5 weeks after the murder. Jackson and Dontel had met years earlier while working as body transporters for the county. Their affair began in late 2019 after Jackson moved into Dontel's home and befriended him and his wife. On the night of Rice's death, the pair drove to Rice's apartment where Jackson opened fire on him outside. She and Dontel then took the body to a local funeral home where they stored it in a cooler for several days. During that time, Jackson called for a welfare check at Rice's home and reported him missing. Dontel would later claim that he dumped the body at Jackson's command after she repeatedly threatened to kill him if he ever told anyone what he had seen. He finally admitted to witnessing the crime after lying to police for years and testified during Jackson's trial that he only came clean after the authorities arranged protection for his family. After deliberating for 2 hours following a 5-day trial in June of 2025, a jury found Jackson guilty of murder, resulting in a lifelong prison sentence. Number 9. Dominic Garcia. In one of the more unique cases on today's list, a 23-year-old Utah man named Dominic Christopher Garcia was arrested in May of 2025 for allegedly holding his pregnant girlfriend's family captive for 6 months while telling them it was for their protection. According to police, Garcia moved in with the family of 7 at their Mill Creek home late 2024 and lied to them for months about his own relatives supposedly having ties to a non-existent cartel. During that time, he reportedly began carrying a handgun and telling household members that the cartel would kill them if they failed to do what they were told. The victims later told police that Garcia also kept them confined to the home for prolonged periods. He was finally arrested after his girlfriend's father dialed 911 while holding Garcia at gunpoint and stated that he couldn't take the confinement any longer. Following his arrest, Garcia told law enforcement that he kept up the ruse because he didn't know how to stop it and was afraid his girlfriend's loved ones would dislike him if they found out that it was all a lie. He's facing 28 criminal charges including aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping, assault of a pregnant person, aggravated extortion, voyeurism, and more, and is currently being held without bond at the Salt Lake County Jail. Number 8. Brook Lynn Lank. A planned drug deal on the north side of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, ended in bloodshed in March of 22 when 28-year-old Brook Lynn Lank killed her boyfriend, 22-year-old Anthony Lofton. It started with a fight between the couple over drugs and money at their home, where a surveillance camera captured footage of Lofton shoving Lank to the ground and threatening to shoot her while pointing 2 guns at her. He then left the home in Lank's car and later returned. At around 5 o'clock in the morning, the couple left for a planned drug deal with another man. Lank shot Lofton multiple times during the drive, later telling police that the victim kept reaching for her. She then met with the man they had planned to conduct the drug sale with, and the two dumped Lofton's body in the borough of McKees Rocks. Police tracked Lank and the male suspect to an Econo Lodge hotel, where they found the man cleaning the vehicle they had been using. Investigators found blood on the interior, and Lank was arrested in connection with his death. She pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter in June of 2025 and is currently awaiting sentencing, which is scheduled for mid-July. Number 7. Joseph Andrew Wacaster. While responding to an Edgerton, Kansas home in March of 2024, police discovered the murdered body of 27-year-old Cade H. Blackburn in a bathroom. The victim had been stabbed to death, and it was evident based on his body temperature that he had been deceased for some time. The body had been covered with a Bible and a sorry game board, and the murder weapon was located on the property. Investigators traced the crime to Blackburn's boyfriend and roommate, Joseph Andrew Wacaster, who confessed to killing the victim in his sleep. Wacaster stated that he didn't know why he committed the crime and that he had allowed intrusive thoughts to win. Court documents state that Blackburn's parents had received cryptic text messages prior to the discovery of their son's body. A text message to the victim's father stated, "Let me know when your meltdown starts," while Blackburn's mother received photos of the sorry game board. Wacaster pleaded guilty to premeditated first-degree murder in April of 2025 and was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Number 6. Jessica Sabo. While responding to a reported shooting in early July of 2023, sheriff's deputies in Iron County, Utah spotted a half-clothed woman walking on a remote roadway while covered in blood, later identified as 42-year-old Jessica Lynn Sabo. She refused to answer any questions and was taken into custody. Deputies were en route to a property about a quarter-mile away when they ran into Sabo. A 911 caller had found Sabo's partner, 48-year-old Shawnie Vel Young, dead outside a travel camper with a bullet wound to the shoulder blade. Items nearby were overturned, indicating the likelihood of a struggle and an "I'm sorry" note was found at the scene. Sabo was originally charged with murder but pleaded guilty to a reduced manslaughter charge and 2 gun-related counts in April of 2025. She received concurrent prison terms of 5 years to life, 1 to 15 years and 0 to 5 years. During her sentencing hearing, Sabo apologized and blamed methamphetamine use and its effects on her mental health for her actions, telling the court that Young had been interrupting her conversations with her dead grandparents. Number 5. Nocomus Harris. In April of 2023, 45-year-old Carlotta Wilson was found face down in a pool of blood with a belt around her neck inside a Memphis, Tennessee apartment. Her throat had been slit. Her car was missing and the killer had taken her phone and thrown it out the window alongside a highway. Bloody clothing left behind at the scene matched the description of Wilson's boyfriend, 45-year-old Nocomus Harris, who had been seen at the residence earlier that day by a witness. The suspected murder weapon, a folding knife, was also found at the scene. Police tracked Wilson's missing car to Dyer County, where they found it wrecked on a gravel road along the Tennessee-Missouri border. The day after the murder, Harris was arrested at a home in Dyersburg shortly thereafter, and in June of 2025, a jury found him guilty of first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. He was sentenced to life for the murder charge plus a 15-year consecutive sentence for the evidence tampering charge. Number 4. Shawn Doyle. 33-year-old single mother of 2, Lori Leonard, vanished in Madison County, New York in May of 2005, just days after her ex-boyfriend Shawn Doyle had helped her move into an apartment in Chittenango. She had told her family that she was traveling to the state's capital, Albany, but never returned. More than 10 weeks later, Leonard's murdered body was discovered inside a metal toolbox that was found floating in the Champlain Canal in Washington County. Her hands and feet were bound. There was duct tape over her mouth, and an autopsy found that she had been asphyxiated. The killer had tried to submerge the toolbox using sand weights, but decomposition and propeller currents from nearby boats had caused it to surface. Doyle lived nearby, and the box Leonard was found in was eventually linked to a key found in his truck, resulting in his arrest on a second-degree murder charge. During his trial, another ex-girlfriend, Cece Opanowski, provided key testimony regarding the defendant's established pattern of violent behavior. Doyle had attacked her in 1996 when she was 18 years old. Opanowski told the jury that her ex had threatened her, restrained her, cut off her ponytail, and held scissors to her throat, causing her to fear for her life. Following the proceedings, Doyle was convicted as charged and sentenced to 25 years to life. He appealed his case, but authorities upheld the original verdict and ruling, citing clear evidence of guilt. Number 3. Shawnie Vel Young. 63-year-old grocery store cashier Pamela Britt stopped at her Baldwin, Mississippi home during her lunch break one afternoon in February of 2020 and never returned to work. The store's owner went to the residence to check on Britt and dialed 911 after crossing paths with 47-year-old Shawnie Vel Young, who seemed to be lying about why she was at the property. Britt was found murdered inside the home, and Young was apprehended after a brief pursuit while trying to run to her car, which was parked about a mile away from the crime scene. It initially appeared that the two women did not know each other, but it was later discovered that they were entangled in a dispute over a man. Britt had previously accused Young of placing a tracking device on her car, and on the day of the murder, Young was lying in wait inside Britt's garage. Young tased Britt, zip-tied her hands together, then suffocated her by holding a plastic bag over her head. She was charged with capital murder and kidnapping, but pleaded guilty to a reduced second-degree murder charge in December of 2023. Prosecutors took the death penalty off the table in exchange for her plea, and she was sentenced to 26 years in prison. Today's topic was requested by Chrissy and Chaos and True Night 1774. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Jose Solano Landaeta. In what authorities later described as a revenge killing, 33-year-old Jose Rafael Solano Landaeta murdered his child's mother with a samurai sword outside her San Carlos, California apartment building in September of 2022. Onlookers watched in horror as he nearly decapitated the victim, 27-year-old Katrina Castro. One witness banged on a neighbor's door and asked them to dial 911, while another person yelled at Landaeta to stop. A third witness ran in search of a police officer they had seen in the area a short while earlier. In the meantime, the attack continued. By the time help arrived, Castro was lying in the road with her head almost completely severed from her body. Using social media messages to support their argument, prosecutors accused Landaeta of killing Castro out of a desire for vengeance. Testifying for the state, eyewitnesses record seeing Landaeta retrieving the murder weapon from his car before killing Castro. Landaeta's attorneys claimed that he had acted in self-defense after Castro tried to stab him, but no knives were ever recovered. The defense also highlighted Landaeta's history of mental health issues, including chronic paranoid schizophrenia, which he had stopped taking his medication for due to the tumultuous nature of his relationship with the victim. In November of 2023, Landaeta was found guilty of first-degree murder and the weapon-related charge. The judge imposed the maximum sentence of 25 years to life while remarking that it wasn't a harsh enough punishment for the crime. This sentiment was echoed by Castro's father, who mentioned to reporters that Landaeta could have faced life without parole if he had used a gun to kill the victim rather than a sword. Number 1. Brian Nichols. 4 innocent people were killed and at least 1 person was injured in Fulton County, Georgia, in March of 2005 when a criminal defendant escaped from an Atlanta courthouse and went on a violent crime spree. Brian Gene Nichols was on trial for kidnapping, assaulting, and committing other crimes against his ex-girlfriend when he overpowered courthouse deputy Cynthia Hall and stole her handgun. Hall survived after being beaten into a coma, but Nichols' other victims were less fortunate. Nichols went on to murder the judge presiding over his case, Roland Barnes, court reporter Julianne Brando, and Sergeant Hoyt Teasley. After escaping the courthouse, he carjacked several vehicles and killed his 4th victim, ICE Special Agent David G. Wilhelm. Later that day, police received a 911 call from a woman named Ashley Smith, who said that Nichols was inside her Duluth apartment. She had been held captive for hours and had managed to reach safety after gaining Nichols' trust and persuading him to free her so she could see her daughter. Nichols surrendered to responding members of law enforcement and confessed to his crimes during questioning. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity to 54 crimes, including murder, felony murder, kidnapping, armed robbery, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, theft, carjacking, and escape. After deliberating for 12 hours following the trial in November of 2008, the jury found Nichols guilty as charged. He was sentenced to multiple life terms without the possibility of parole. Thanks for watching. Would you rather go on a date with Melania Trump or with Stormy Daniels, and why? Let us know in the comments section below.